This morning, federal marshals arrived at Mar-a-Lago, but not for a search, not for an arrest. They came for something far more shocking, a court-ordered seizure to enforce unpaid judgments. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds too dramatic, too unreal to be true. But trust me, this is as real as it gets. What's happening here isn't just a headline. This is the law in action. A property worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and a person who spent years avoiding accountability is now at the center of it all. But here's the catch. This isn't a one-off event. This is part of a pattern that's been building for years. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened, how the law works, and why this moment could change everything. So stay with me because you won't want to miss what comes next. Now, this isn't just about one property or one person. This is about a much bigger issue, an issue that affects you whether you realize it or not. Because this moment is part of a disturbing pattern that's been unfolding for years. It's not the first judgment, not the second, but the third major legal loss. And every time, the response has been the same: delay, deny, don't pay. Think about that for a second. What happens when someone with the resources to avoid paying simply refuses to follow the law? When court orders, verdicts, and judgments are treated as optional? So here's the real question. What does that say about our legal system? And more importantly, what does that mean for you? If someone powerful can escape the consequences of their actions, what happens to the rest of us? Stick with me because we're diving deep into the details. And trust me, what you'll see here could change how you view the entire system. Here's the thing. This isn't just a small issue. It's a massive one, and it's happening in real time. The scale of the debt here is staggering. Over $500 million in court-ordered judgments, not allegations, not lawsuits. Actual judgments, backed by evidence, heard by juries. The first judgment, $83 million for defamation. The second, $355 million for fraud. And now the third, $91 million for another defamation case. That's a total of over $500 million that one person is refusing to pay. And what's the response? Appeals, delay tactics, no payments. Now let me ask you this. When does it stop? When do these delays stop being a strategy and start becoming a threat to the entire system? Here's where it gets even more shocking. This pattern, this refusal to pay, this isn't just a legal issue. It's a systemic issue that could change how we all see justice. But here's the twist. What if the system doesn't work when it's needed most? This is where it escalates. This isn't just one person avoiding responsibility. This is a dangerous trend. And we've seen it before, though never at this scale. Think about it. When powerful individuals repeatedly delay or defy court orders, it sends a clear message. The system isn't built for everyone. It's designed to favor those with the resources to drag things out. And here's the unsettling part. This is becoming normalized. We're watching a pattern unfold where defying legal judgments isn't just tolerated, it's expected. Now, pause for a moment. What does that do to the average person? If you or I were in the same position, we wouldn't have the luxury of pushing back, of appealing indefinitely. But those with money and influence, they can play the system. And if this continues, it's not just one case that will be undermined, it's the entire concept of civil enforcement. We're talking about a breakdown of accountability on a scale we can no longer ignore. And here's where it gets even more disturbing. The second judgment, $355 million for fraud, a fraud case, the kind of thing that destroys businesses' livelihoods and reputations. And yet instead of paying what was owed, the response was to delay to appeal. This wasn't just a case of a late payment, it was a calculated refusal to accept responsibility, a refusal to comply with the system. And here's the kicker. There's a clear contradiction between what's being said and what's being done. The legal process is clear, the judgment was made, the debt is owed, but the actions speak louder. And this isn't a minor issue. This is the kind of behavior that calls into question the very foundation of civil justice. Now ask yourself, what does this tell us about the system? If judgments can be ignored without consequence, what does that say about the power of the courts? What does it say about who gets to play by the rules and who doesn't? This isn't just about one person's refusal to pay. It's about whether our entire system of justice still holds any weight. The pressure is building, and here's where it all starts to collapse in on itself. We've seen it before, multiple judgments, multiple refusals to pay. But now it's no longer just about the judgments themselves. It's about how the system is failing to enforce them. What happens when one refusal turns into two, then three, and no one steps in to stop it? That's what we're seeing right now. The Marshals are at Mar-a-Lago, but this isn't just about one property. It's about what happens when no one takes responsibility, when the system is pushed to its breaking point. What if this continues? What if the delay tactics become the norm and legal judgments are no longer meaningful? This isn't just a courtroom drama. This is a crisis in accountability. And once that system fails, it's too late to fix it. What happens when we can't trust the law to back up its own decisions? Now let's bring this closer to home. How does this affect you if you've ever been wronged, whether in business, in a contract, or even personally? Civil courts are the place where you expect to find justice. You sue, you win, and you expect to be made whole. But what if that judgment doesn't mean anything? What if the person who owes you money can just refuse to pay, stall, and delay until the system bends to their will? That's what's at stake here. If someone with money can avoid paying a judgment, what does that mean for the rest of us? What does it mean for small businesses that rely on the courts to settle disputes? Or for individuals whose reputations have been destroyed by lies? Civil courts are supposed to be the great equalizer, a way to make things right when you can't send someone to prison. But if those courts can't enforce their own judgments, it means the system only works for the wealthy. And that's not a future any of us can afford. Let's take a step back and look at how this system works, or more accurately, how it's supposed to work. This isn't just about one person or one property. This is about the entire structure of our civil justice system. When someone refuses to pay a court-ordered judgment, the system is supposed to step in. The law allows for assets to be seized, for property to be auctioned, and for the debt to be settled, even if the person refuses to cooperate. This process exists to maintain order and to ensure that judgments have real-world consequences. But when the system fails to act, when it lets one person or one entity play by different rules, it exposes a deeper flaw. The system isn't just about courtrooms and legal jargon. It's about power, leverage, and the incentives that drive behavior. And when those with power can use their resources to delay, appeal, and avoid responsibility, it shifts the balance. The system starts working for the few, not the many. And that's a dangerous precedent. So where does this go from here? There are two possible paths, and neither one offers a simple resolution. On one hand, the debtor could pay up, write a check, and satisfy the judgment. That would stop everything in its tracks. The Marshals would back off, the property would remain untouched, and the legal process would be complete. But let's be real. Given the history here, it's unlikely to end that way. The other path? The debtor could continue appealing, dragging this out, forcing the courts to keep pushing back enforcement. The Marshals will keep moving forward, but will be left in a holding pattern, waiting for months, maybe even years, while this plays out. The thing is, appeals don't stop enforcement permanently. Eventually, if there's no resolution, the property will go to auction and the proceeds will satisfy the debt. But that's still far down the road, and by then the damage to the system will already be done. So what happens next is unclear, but one thing's for sure, the clock is ticking and the pressure's only going to build. And that brings us to the core of it all. This isn't just about a property or an individual. It's about the principle of accountability, the idea that the law applies to everyone, no matter how powerful or wealthy. What we're seeing right now is a test of whether the system still works when it's pushed to its limits. If court judgments can be ignored without consequence, what does that mean for the future of civil justice? What we've learned today is simple. When the system is manipulated, when powerful individuals escape responsibility, the system begins to break down. And if we don't hold it accountable, we all lose. So keep your eyes on this story, because the outcome here will set a precedent for everything that comes after. If you want to stay up to date on this case as it develops, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment with your thoughts. Do you think this gets resolved before it reaches auction? I'll be watching closely, and I want you to be part of this conversation too.